Hello, happy Friday. Jen and Amy with Next Level Wealth here. Today we are so excited about the topic. Amy is really excited about the topic.
Very
She's going to be
excited.
the one doing a lot of the talking today. Because what Amy's going to tell us way more, but the topic is confusion to clarity. And I'm just going to kind of let her start it off, and then we'll kind of explain what that means and how this will support you especially this time of year and as you move forward in your business. So, all right, Amy, can you kind of break down for us, what do you mean when you say clarity? Because that's sort of a buzzword.
It is.
I feel like it's what everybody's talking about. Like, what do you mean when you say clarity?
So this is, I know for you too, and for me, in our coaching, one-on-one and group coaching, this is a really big theme. Mm-hmm. People say, I'm confused either about my goals or my plan, or even just more in a bigger picture way, like we talk about what's your why? Mm-hmm. How do I get to that? How do I even get to what's my why? So this is what we're talking about when we talk about clarity, is getting to a place where there's this alignment, right? Mm-hmm. There's this sense of, okay, this feels right. I feel clear. This is how I'm going to move forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think that tell us a little bit about how, or like, what areas of our life are you talking about getting clarity in? How can this support us moving forward?
Yeah, the great thing about this topic about clarity is that it applies to every area of your life. I think what people, I'll say this about clarity, what I think people are often waiting for is this flash of inspiration, this like sudden knowing, and that's how you're going to get clear. Mm-hmm. So we keep waiting for that, right? But we don't create the space in our lives we need to get to that place, and we don't do the strategies we need to be doing to get to that place. So clarity is, first of all, not static. It's not a one-time thing. It's not, and I talk about this a lot too. I'm sure some of you have heard me talk about this. We're not talking about certainty. We're not talking about certainty, which is something that can actually block creativity. It can be rigid. We're talking about clarity, and clarity is an active process. Clarity is something that we are seeking, and we may get clear or feel clear about something, and then that shifts, and it may change next week. So it's not about getting stuck in this one thing or about some magical thing that happens and you're suddenly clear. It's an active, ongoing process. So I want to say that. And then, the three areas, this is what I think about when I think about clarity in my own life and when I'm working with people. There are three big areas I'm focusing on. The first one, and the foundation of it, right, is values. Yeah. So what's important to me? Who am I as a person? If you don't know that piece, you don't get clear about that, then it's hard to move forward with the other two, which is goals. What am I working towards? And then plans. How am I going to get there? So values, goals, and plans are three big areas that we're often working on. Yeah,
I love that. And it's really in alignment with this time of year, right? And because my clients, our clients in the next 10 days are going to be really getting clear about their 2023 goals and strategies, right? And because we need to live with those for a little while to make sure that they're in alignment with our values, right? And that they're the right goals, and then make plans about how we're going to meet those. And what we know for entrepreneurs, you hear me say this all the time, is Happy New Year for entrepreneurs is October 1st. Everything that you're doing October 1st has a direct impact on what your revenue and your results look like Q1.
Yes.
So this is a really timely conversation, because if there is confusion, what I always say too is when people live in confusion, it's an unanswered question.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? It's not, people say the word confused, I think often when they are not at all confused. Right?
Tell me more about that.
Well, I think that people actually have the answers. This is what I have to believe this as a coach. I genuinely believe that people have the answers. I think what clarity does for people is help them weed through the cobwebs and the nonsense to get to what they know to be true. And I think confusion, I'm going to say it, it's a cop out. It's a cop out. Because I think when you're like, oh, I'm just confused, you get to stop.
Yeah.
You get to.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say you're clear, then you're expecting yourself to do something about it.
Yeah. So what often goes with confusion is actually stuckness.
Yes.
And kind of a learned helplessness, right? I'm confused. I just have to wait until I'm clear. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I think a lot of the work that we do, and specifically Amy's doing, is getting you to clear that out a little bit and to not go to that potential default of like confusion, and get to what is it that I actually do know? What is it that I actually don't know and I need to get more information about? And then how to move forward. I don't know. We could go on a tangent about that, but I just think that that's what when I hear that word, it's kind of the same when clients say to me, I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a trigger for me. Amy's way better at working with that. So if I don't know is your go-to answer, Amy can support you in getting out of there.
Yeah.
I tend to be like, you do know, right? So tell me more. And yet I think that's what we're talking about is the I don't know is that like confusion place, that stuck place.
Right.
Right. The clarity is, okay, let's weed out what's really true here, what's really real in regards to what you don't know.
Yes.
Let's weed out the baggage and the meaning that we've created around whatever it is
The
that's
stories.
back, and get to the meat of it, the truth of it, which can then lead you into your goal planning.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, then we go to this place. I think what people go to when they say, I'm confused or I don't know, and then you're saying, you do know. So then the next question, I think, is how do we get to the knowing?
Yes, that's what I was about to ask you. Like, okay, give us some strategies here on what we do to get from confusion to clarity.
Okay, my two top strategies, you've already named one of them. The first one is ask questions. So getting clarity is a process of inquiry. And like I said earlier, it's an action process. It's something that you're doing continually. So you're asking questions. Something I've actually heard people say about you, Jen, as a coach, I've heard this a few times from some of your clients, is, God, you always ask the right question. Okay, so that is really important, right? And sometimes we struggle to ask ourselves the questions, which is where coaching can come in. But you have to ask yourself questions that are going to lead you somewhere and that are going to help you kind of weed through all of that distraction, all the muck that causes the confusion. Okay, so that's number one. The other one that I think is hugely important, and if you can only do these two things, you're going to get somewhere, and that's create space. So something I know I used to do, I probably still do it, but I used to do a lot, is when I was confused and felt stuck, you know what I would do? I would get the latest book on clarity and confusion. I would, I would just like researching and and listen to a podcast. And that is a strategy. Let me be clear. That's not a bad thing. But what I would do is fill up all my space with that because I wanted some other authority to give me the answer.
Yes.
So we actually need to create space. That's where the inner knowing comes from. That's where the clarity comes from.
And when you say create space, tell us break it down in like really simple language. What does that mean?
That means that you are not filling up your entire day constantly. That every time you have a moment of free space, that you're not reading that book about clarity or listening to that podcast, that you give yourself room sometimes to just be quiet, to sit. And that's hard. Sometimes that's hard for us, and I'm not saying you have to meditate, although meditation is good for clarity, but I am saying you have to have some space that is quiet so that your own thoughts can come through. If you're constantly distracting yourself or busy, right, or reading a book or listening to a podcast or doing all those things, then you're not able to hear yourself. So that's what I mean in a very literal sense.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think, for me, that looks like going on a walk because I need to be moving, but not taking my AirPods and listening to a podcast or learning, which is what I tend to do, or jamming out, whatever that is, which are all great things. And yet what I hear you saying is we've got to give ourselves enough room and enough brain space to even have a thought.
Yes, that's right.
Right? And to clear out some of those cobwebs. And if we're so packed in schedule wise or brain space wise, then we can't do that.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you brought up a good point about walking. So I'll be honest, I struggle to sit still and be quiet. It's fine to do something else as long as it's not something else that's filling up your head with other people's thoughts, other people's words. So taking a walk without listening to a podcast, my favorite thing to do is to do 2 or 3 things at one time and be efficient. But you have to make space in your life to just allow the quiet. So go for a walk and do that. Do something active if you want to. But leave room for your own thoughts to come up, for you to be in touch with yourself. Yeah.
Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the questions for a second, because I think people get, what's funny is people often say ask questions, and do you know the questions that I ask? Tell me more. And
yeah.
What else?
Expand on that, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So it isn't, when you're talking to yourself and asking yourself more questions and gaining more clarity, it isn't because you've developed and crafted some question that is so powerful and has
the magic question,
the flowery language. It really is have a thought and then say, interesting. Be curious about the thought. And go further and say, all right, if I had to think more about that thought, what would I say? Okay, if I had to think more about it, what might I say? If somebody were saying, what else? What might I say?
Yeah.
Right? It's really drilling down to what the truth is, because what comes up, somebody told me this, a guru or mentor coach of mine said, it's really their first, their second, their third answer is usually inaccurate. And it isn't because people want to lie.
Yeah.
It's just that people haven't really drilled down to what it is. And I think they're in that confusion mode. And so their knee-jerk reaction is usually something symptomatic. It's something that is sort of on the surface level.
That's right. Yeah.
And so what we do, you've heard all this before, peel the onion, go 3 deep, sort of all of those concepts. But I think it really is about continuing to drill into, okay, but what do I mean by that? What does that mean to me? And really keep going until literally, I will sometimes ask, what else? to a point where clients are looking at me like, can you do your job? I've told you 20 things. Can you say something different? Because I want them to exhaust every possible thought in regards to that subject. Because usually it takes, it could take 5 or 10 times to really get to what's the truth.
Yeah.
What's the truth under the truth? What's the thing that is most important to free my mind so that I can get to clarity?
That is such a good point. That we humans want to know. We feel very uncomfortable with confusion. We feel very uncomfortable not knowing. And so we're often going to have that knee-jerk response just to know so that we can grab onto something. And then we're moving into the territory of looking for certainty because we're uncomfortable. So that process that Jen's talking about lets you dig deeper underneath that first response and actually get to clarity. Right? That's what it makes me think of.
I love that. Okay, so if we were to, and I'm going to put Amy on the spot a little bit here, so we're ready. If we were to say to this group, okay, here's one thing that you can do this week in order to get into clarity, what would be your call to action? What would you tell them to do first?
I would say, actually, the most important thing you could do is create a small amount of space. You can move your body while you do it, but you create this small amount of space. It could be 15 minutes. I would say at least 15 minutes. And just be quiet. You don't have to be still, but let everything fade in terms of other people's voices, opinions, thoughts. Just have 15 minutes where you can either sit and meditate, you can take a walk, but you're not doing anything that's inputting other people's stuff into your brain. So that would be the number one thing I would say. And you will be amazed at what a difference it makes in calming yourself, calming your nervous system, calming your mind, and allowing, you know how people talk about gut reactions or gut feelings, right? Allowing that ability to be in touch with your body and your responses to things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right. Anything else you want to tell us before I tell them about what we're going to do for the rest of the month?
No, I think it's just good. You're right. This is a really good lead in into September. So yeah, let's talk about September.
Yeah. So I alluded to this, that my clients are really going to start getting into goal planning. And so we want to support all of you in starting that process as well. So what we will be talking about on these lives, our masterclass for September, which is September the 21st.
I think so.
I believe. Well, you'll see more about that. It's all going to be in service of getting you ready, getting you clarity around how do you goal plan for 2023. And there's a million things that you can Google, SMART goals, all of those things. Those are all important and they all can be helpful. And yet we're really going to go, as we started today, really deeper into how do we create the right goals that are in alignment with who we are. And because ultimately when we create those kinds of goals, we can actually follow them, and they can be dynamic, and they can be things that we utilize and rely on throughout the year as a support, rather than something that either we feel kind of judged about, you know, like judging ourselves on like, oh, I'm not doing this, or blah, blah, blah. It's really like, I'm excited to show up for myself and show up for my goals, and really create goals that are in alignment with who you are, not just who you think you need to be. So that's what we're doing for the rest of this month and most of next month. I think maybe all of next month. It will be a continuation of that process. So stay tuned. Send us questions. If there are specific questions that you have about goal planning, we'll be asking you in some polls, but please send those to us, DM us, get in touch with us so that we can make sure we answer those on these lives.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll see you soon.
Thanks for being here. Take care.
Bye.